Welcome to the 2022 Economic Depression and Preparation Channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me today on this edition of Preach to Me. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest financial news in the United States and sometimes abroad. And today we're going to be talking about briefly how spending has gone down in Americans' households sharply this month in November, according to CNBC reports, and also according to reports on the ground. Also, the UK economy is the second weakest performing economy in the G20 nations in the world. That's striking dangerously close to the United States in terms of our performance in GDP. And we're also going to talk about briefly the rail strike. They keep talking about this railroad strike in the news. What does that mean for us all over the country here, and how we can prepare a little bit? Have you noticed the malls and the outlets and different places were packed with cars in the parking lot, but empty inside the stores in terms of what people actually purchased? That's a result of the higher inflation, as you know. And also, this is going to be eating into all kinds of household budgets. Everyone from middle class to, upper class to just regular workers, everybody in the nation is going to be cutting back next year in 2023 as we feel the brunt of the recession come into play here as it begins the recession. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, this next recession is not going to be like it was in 2008, 2009, just that 2 to 3 year period. We're looking at a recession this time of 5 years or more, or even a depression is what we're looking at. But a recession to start out, we'll say 5 years. In the first 5 years, as the economy transitions itself from a service sector economy to a automation, IT, robotic economy. In addition to that, with those job losses that's going to happen as a result of that, as you know, a foreshadowing of a new system coming in, some kind of, some people say a CBDC, a digital dollar. Technically, we already kind of have that, but it's just that we still have the physical cards and things of that nature. But there is something definitely on the horizon, and all countries are trying to prepare for it as best they can. So here we go. Even with slower inflation, consumer sentiment weakened sharply in November. Survey shows. University of Michigan survey of consumers posted a 54.7 reading for November. Now that's down 8.7% from previous months' reading and well below the estimates that the senior economists had been expecting. The survey noted a particular slide in views on spending for durable goods. Big ticket items such as television, kitchen appliances, and motor vehicles fell 21%. So we're just looking at the big ticket items, not counting items that we purchase every day like gas, energy costs, kids' daycares, school-related costs, things of that nature is not counted in this survey. But higher interest rates does spell a potential recession, and that's according to this University of Michigan survey of consumers, and also according to a lot of pundits in CNBC, MSNBC, Fox Business News, Yahoo Finance. All of these agencies have at least a 50-50 chance, there's at least a 50-50 chance of recession in the next 6 months as we head into this winter. So winter is coming, as a quote-unquote, the famous movie line that people like to quote. Now, the good news is that the credit markets are still flowing at a reasonable pace, both for consumer small business credit and for personal credit. As you know, in the previous video, we discussed that the credit was increasing. The credit card debt was increasing for Americans all across the board, whether you live in the West, Northwest, Southeast, Northeast, the middle of the nation's heartland. Credit card balances are increasing and credit card debt is expounding. So credit markets are still flowing. That is some of the somewhat good news, even though job losses are going to be accelerating as we head into 2023, this last quarter here, fourth quarter, and into 2023. And this is evident by TheGuardian.com. This is UK news. They say the UK is to become the second weakest performer of the world's biggest economies next year, says the OECD. That is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They're based in Paris, France. And you show here the G20 economies, as I said previously here, this is proof. If you look at it here, Russia's will contract. Only Russia's economy will contract more than the UK. You're looking at the graph here. So Russia's economy is expected to contract negative 5.6%. The UK is at negative 0.04%. Germany is at negative 0.03%. Those are the 3 largest economies that make up on the Euro-Asia complex there. And you can see the U.S. is not doing much better. We're only a couple places ahead. We're only supposed to grow by 0.5%, and that's relative growth. Really, we're at a stalemate. That includes Canada, France, U.S., South Africa, Brazil, Spain, Mexico, Korea, Japan, Australia. So all of these countries are at a stalemate when you're at that 0.5 to 1% GDP growth. That means it's a flat line. Improving economies look to be Turkey, China, of course, Indonesia, as they sign deals with China, Saudi Arabia, of course, they've signed deals, and India, of course, who signed deals with China. So those economies right there are going to be growing next year by 45% clip, at least for the first part of next year, in the first half of next year. And this is what's going to be plaguing our economy, as you know. Consumer sentiment, Americans are down in terms of spending is down because obviously we have less disposable income because inflation is creeping up in all of our needed items are going up every time you go to the store, and you're getting less. And on top of that, this rail strike that we thought was resolved about 2 months ago, it has not been resolved. A rail strike won't screw up your holidays, according to CNNbusiness.com, but it will affect you in other ways. Isn't that always the case? There is no free lunch, ladies and gentlemen, as you know. A freight rail strike could cost the U.S. economy $1 billion in its first week alone, according to new analysts from the Anderson Economic Group. Calculations show impacts of approximately 60 million, 30 million in lost freight, 3.8 million in long-term passenger rail disruption, and 25 million in lost railroad industry wages. So that is also possible too. Even if the unions come to an agreement, the railroads are one of the few places that they still have a strong union agreement. Most other places are getting rid of that. But unfortunately, this strike is going to affect gasoline prices. As you know, gasoline prices are going to continue to stay elevated through the winter. Do not expect too much of a reduction. And we won't be surprised to see gas, regular unleaded, above $4.15 a gallon nationally starting in the middle of December. Food prices are going to continue to go up. Car prices are going to go up too as well because the rails, depending on that as well, rail strike. 75% of completed cars in the U.S. factories are imported here are moving by rail. So do many of the parts. So expect used car prices to go up and new cars prices to go up as inventory suffers if the rail strike continues for more than 1 week. Manufacturing, that's going to go up. Commuting is going to go up too as well because, you know, the same tracks are used by Amtrak. They share some of the same CSX, Norfolk Southern, Union Railroad, BL Railroad tracks. So Amtrak will be cutting most of its long distance trains leading up to the service deadline, and they will continue. They will cut more routes if commuters on some of these popular routes in the Northeast and then the out west and then Midwest and Chicago, if the strike comes to fruition. So we have to watch that very closely, ladies and gentlemen, as we head into this new week, getting in this Monday, Tuesday time frame. Let's continue to stay focused on what we need to do individually and collectively to succeed and to be planning. So what we need to do now is we need to continue to stock up on durable goods, not just the usual food, water, and medicine, but also items that we feel like it's going to be more expensive if the rail strike shuts down. And that's going to be your pharmaceuticals. That's going to be your generators. So either solar powered or regular generators. That's going to be items that you need beyond the last you for 2 or 3 months and getting closer to this next summer. Those are the kind of items that you want to stock up on ahead of time because the prices are not going down in none of these places, and the greed and the fear of missing out is going to go up with a lot of Americans and a lot of visitors to America. There's going to be a lot of greed and fear of missing out in these markets, the Wall Street markets, the S&P 500, and the crypto markets as well, and in the gold and silver markets. There's going to be a lot of greed and FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want to get caught up in the hype because you have to remember Venezuela, Turkey, Greece, Lebanon, all of these countries had a currency collapse and their stock markets melted up in the process. Could the U.S. be following that paradigm as well, where the markets they love, saying that the Federal Reserve Bank is going to going to lax the pace of rate hikes, but at the same time, lowering the pace of rate hikes is not the same as cutting them all together. Okay, there's a big difference, and the market is so disconnected from the real economy out here. What we're seeing in the malls, in the commercial space, in the housing market, where houses are staying longer on the market, as you know, to sell, and house sellers are having to cut by 10, 20K, 30K, for even 50K to get a sale if they even get one in a lot of these subdivisions and townhomes and places that are across America. So be prepared, stay prepared. God bless. I'll talk to you very soon in the next episode. Thank you for listening.